One of my favorite songs when I think of politics is this Three Dog Night doing Liar, because I don't know who's telling me the truth. It's like every day somebody will say something and somebody else is saying it's not true. In the Coast to Coast, PM Coast to Coast Search for the Truth, we have for you one of our frequent contributors on the national and local political scene, Professor Bob Swick, and we don't know where to begin, but Bob usually does. And Bob, how are you this evening, my friend?
I'm very good, Tony. How are you? And thanks for having me on the show.
It's always a pleasure. And I left to my own devices here with my wife babysitting tonight. I had dinner, cleared the dishes, turned on the computer, started to get ready for the show, and I see there was a major plant closing, if you call it a plant, in Shelton involving a Cablevision subsidiary. And it's like, this is another wonderful thing happening in Connecticut. Can you comment?
Well, we got a lot of major economic problems going on in Connecticut. The biggest thing that is occurring today is that jobs are moving out of the state left and right. And twofold today, two different companies. Optimum is shutting down two area, I guess, call centers out of Shelton and out of, I believe, Stamford, and they're moving those jobs to New York area, in which they're going to offer some of the employees an ability to move and take the jobs out of state. I don't see that a lot of people taking those jobs, so therefore there's going to be a net loss of anywhere from 400 to 600 jobs there. The bigger issue is that a company called, and I'm going to bring up my notes here, we have a situation in, I think you're part of Connecticut there.
Yeah, it's east of me, I believe.
It's Rogers company is moving to Arizona. They're moving to Chandler, Arizona. They were founded in Connecticut in 1832. They've been in state for well over 184 years. The research I was able to do on it, as limited as it was today, since the news broke today, was that I see twofold that their tax burden was going to drop dramatically in Arizona, and Chandler had enough ability to incorporate what they had here in Connecticut, and I guess integrate with several of their different regional or subsidiaries out there. So it would be a better combination for them than keeping the area they had here in Connecticut for 184 years to keep it going. The net loss of jobs, I've read a couple different areas on that, and it's going to be substantial, anywhere from 200 to 600 jobs are going to be lost long-term in Connecticut from that. The bigger point that I'll make on the Rogers is, and I was not able to confirm this, obviously the amount of property taxes they pay up there is substantial for that town, and therefore that's a big hit for that town as far as their revenue is concerned.
Okay, we started this discussion probably a few months back with the loss of GE, and I was watching Bloomberg television, I guess it was last week, and Bertolini from Aetna was saying, Obamacare is killing me. I can't make any expansion plans because my profit base is undetermined, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know which way to go. They're thinking about it. I mean, is the light going on here at all for anyone?
Well, I think, we're in such a state of turmoil with everything in the state, whether it's health insurance, whether it's businesses moving out of the state, whether it's the uncertainty for those people who are on these plans that are gone. I don't know which way or how to express the inability of our state leaders to actually make good judgment and good decisions, and realize that the excessive amount of taxation in the state has firmly uprooted the state's economic system, so that businesses are moving out literally weekly. and at the same time creating so much uncertainty for people who, and I talked to so many, I know you talked to many people who can't wait to get out of Connecticut. And, you know, they got a couple of years, they got 2 years, they got 3 years, they're going to be moving out, they're retiring, and that's it. And that's creating, on the flip side, a massive glut of housing in the state where people are looking at anywhere from 6 months to 12 months to try to sell their house on top of it. So you got so many different scenarios playing out economically that Connecticut is just in a mess any way you look at it. And I've attended a couple of meetings politically for several local candidates, and a lot of the candidates and the people working in the campaigns are saying the general feeling they're getting from the public going door to door, from both Democrat voters, Republican voters, and independent voters, is they're fed up. They are fed up with what's going on in Hartford, and they're fed up with what's going on in the state. And it's a bad situation economically. And I truly feel, and I know I've talked about this numerous times in the past, everything is related to economics. You need functional employment. You need employment that pays good wages so that it can stimulate the economy, so that you can buy things, so you can buy a home, so that you can,
Right.
improve your home, so on and so forth. And we're fast eroding that part of the economy where people have good jobs and people are able to afford to stay in the state, let alone the brain drain that we see with the amount of young people moving out of the state literally on a daily basis at the same time.
It's really a question as to where do you begin. Of everyone in Hartford, because you have a good sense of what's happening there, is anyone coming forward with any, I hate to say it, but coherent ideas as to how to fix this?
Well, here's my theory on that, and I'm glad you brought it up. If we look at a realistic way of how we view our government, we have a State House of Representatives that has 151 members. We have a State Senate that has 36 members. Right now, the State House has 87 Democrats and 64 Republicans representing the people of the state of Connecticut. The Republicans basically need 12 more seats to regain control of the State House of Representatives. They have not been in the majority in the State House of Representatives for well over 30 years now. In the State Senate, there's 20 Democrats and 15 Republicans. There needs to be a net gain of 4 Republicans, and the Republicans would take hold of the control of the State Senate. And if you want to look at coherency and you want to try to understand coherency, the only way coherency can take place is if there's a series of checks and balances within our state government. For too long, we've had the Democrats basically running everything, and I go back to Weicker, who was, to me, a very, very liberal Republican, turned independent, turned very, very liberal Democrat, then followed by the Roland Well years in which the governor themselves really had no say of what was going on because the Democrats could override anything that the governors either signed into law, wanted to sign in the law, or bills they wanted to pass. And it's only been magnified more because of the mismanagement of Dan Malloy and his administration. 2 of the largest tax increases in the state history, which have provided absolutely no stimulus for the state of Connecticut, continue to provide excessive amounts of debt for the state, and again creates this economic turmoil that we have. And again, what is the coherent plan? You got to cut taxes. The only way you're going to stimulate the state economy and get people back into the state, you have to lower their taxes. If you look at our federal tax burden, our state tax burden, a very, very high property tax burden in the state, I don't know who in their right mind wants to move in the state. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, I do.
And the other big issue is you have to cut back on the salaries, the benefits, and the pensions that are being paid to state employees, both management and non-management. Non-management union employees are now starting to feel the pinch because now they're going to a tier system for pensions. There's changes that are being made. In theory, there were layoffs at the same time. But on the management side, Tony, the excesses that we see are just utterly ridiculous as far as our salaries and pensions are concerned. which leads me to the other half of the argument. What is Connecticut doing to try to resolve their unfunded liabilities of pensions, benefits, and bonding, which can run anywhere from $70 to $80 billion? And I can't get anybody in government to pinpoint for me what is the actual figure. I can only take my own estimates, which I put at $71 billion, is how badly the state is in debt. And I don't see what the plan is going to be in the future to try to either pay down the debt or to try to neutralize the debt so we don't continue to borrow money. And I use the example, I'm pretty sure you read in the paper, the state bonded $325,000 for a statue to go up in Hartford. Is that really necessary? Do we really have to spend $325,000 of taxpayers' money in an effort to do what? Be politically correct, to pay off political debt. It just doesn't work anymore. It's failed our state miserably.
Well, no, please continue.
Also have to couple with the amount of corruption that's going on in Hartford, with now Dan Malloy under the federal probe for his mailing in the last gubernatorial election, in which basically money was taken out of a special fund that was not allowed to be used for mailings for the state, for the governor's race, and therefore violated the state's clean election law. I truly believe, and I continue to state, and from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, that will be the ultimate downfall of Dan Malloy, which is why he's hoping so desperately that Hillary Clinton can win so he can get a job in Washington and walk away from this debacle that he's created in Connecticut.
There's 4 or 5 places here to begin. You raised an interesting point where you went to the state and you said, please give me this information, and you're given a game of Donkey Kong. I know of another friend of mine who is involved as an investment officer for one of the major banks in the state. He had made an inquiry, I think, when Rowland was governor, about the purchase of, for lack of a better term, slum housing in Hartford in the hope of making it public housing, and the money fell into a black hole. He received nothing. Should not this information be public information, and why is it so hard to get?
Well, I think because it's so damaging, because it's every which way. It breaks, in my opinion, it breaks laws that they will not publish this information. They don't allow the information to become public knowledge. You really got to try to search and try to gain the information on these things. And the media, to me, is in bed with the Democratic Party in the state of Connecticut. They're doing whatever they can to, promote the agenda of the Democrats and of the, of limiting the knowledge. And yet they come out with, for example, John Lender of the Hartford Current comes out with these incredible finds sometimes of what is actually going on. But it's too little too late. It's well after the fact of everything occurring. Why is the information so difficult? I really don't know, other than they're trying to protect their hierarchy. They're trying to protect the spoil system that has engulfed the state so badly. And because of this, it's just so out of control that many of these political officials, many of these politicians feel they're well above the law, and as such they can do whatever they want. And if they get caught, so they get caught. They'll cop a plea bargain and just move on to the next thing that they can go forward with, and therefore continue to be supported by taxpayers in this political spoil system. It is to the point today, Tony, I hate to say it, taxpayers work for state government. State government is not representing taxpayers. We are working for taxpayers. We as taxpayers are working for state government. We're supporting, unfortunately, this debacle that occurs on a daily basis up there. And that's the biggest problem. Again, the information should be public knowledge. If I could spend 24 hours a day researching this stuff, I'd probably find more stuff, but at the same time, I have other responsibilities too.
Don't we all?
And that's the problem. We're limited as far as what we're allowed to see, to view, to understand, and unless we advertise, unless we echo it, that's the only way people are getting insurance. Well, I never heard of that in my life, that you would pay a municipality in the state of Connecticut is allowed to pay cash to an agent directly for insurance. That never existed, that he went to jail for, basically. It's just irrational to me to see that level of corruption, that level of nonchalantness about being corrupted at the same time. And it's evolved more and more, in my opinion, under the Malloy administration, as much as it evolved in the Rowland administration, which Rowland was just trying to benefit from fixing up his cottage there and a few other things, which I don't condone in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not looking at a wholesale fraud that Malloy's been going through between the mailing and the lies he's presented to the people of the state of Connecticut as far as any type of budget deficits are concerned. And by keeping voting districts open later during election time to make sure he gets enough votes to get in, so on and so forth. I mean, it's literally unlimited what the corruption has become in Hartford because of this.
And which leads me to my second point or question. This scandal with the emails and the $325,000, and to me, this is a mind-blowing mess of fraud, and the whole thing stinks out loud. You find very little information on it. I'm very thankful that, you're providing it, because otherwise I wouldn't be getting anything.
Well, to me, the $325,000 settlement, I can't see how it's legal in any way, shape, or form. What did the $325,000 do? It basically bought off the commission so that they wouldn't do any more investigation on it. So they would close the case, and they get an influx of cash. And I wouldn't doubt there were a lot of side deals made during this $325,000 presentation at the same time, which is, I think, why, mercifully, the federal investigative unit got involved in it when they said, hey, wait a minute, how can you settle this for $325,000 and admit there was no wrongdoing? It was in clear violation of the law. So what you're telling me now is the whole state's clean election laws that were passed right after the Rowland debacle are now out the window and can be ignored any way they wish by the state Democratic Party so that they can continue to gain re-election. And that inherently is very wrong. And again, that ties into the mood of the people of the state of Connecticut, especially the voters. They're fed up. They've had enough. It's not making sense anymore what's going on in state government. And the other area that I'd like to point out, even though we have a presidential election going on in the state, I think Connecticut voters, because they're so upset, they're not even worrying about the top of the ticket. They're more concerned with their state reps and their state senators. They want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And I truly believe because they are so upset, there's going to be some major changes in both the House and the Senate in November. I could be completely wrong and off the mark, because I feel also that Dick Blumenthal's U.S. Senator really is just going to roll back into re-election again, and the 5 Democrats who are in the U.S. House will probably all win re-election again. But on a state level, I think the whole election is focusing on the state government and how bad it is. So therefore, that could have a ripple effect where we might actually see some changes of what's going on. And again, go back to the clean election law. Why have a clean election law if it's not going to be...
If you're going to be dirty.
And at the same time, I'll go back a step further, where the state attorney general, this goes back probably 7-8 months, where the state attorney general found that the state balanced budget constitutional amendment was invalid because there was no dollar figure pointed to that actual amendment to make it for lack of a better term, a real amendment to the Constitution. I never heard logic like that before in my life. There was a constitutional question on the ballot. Voters voted overwhelmingly to have a spending cap, and the spending cap has been ignored year in and year out by the Connecticut Democratic Party. You know what? in a variety of ways. The biggest way that they do is they just take whole programs off budget and they're done with it. And then they don't have to report them anymore. They don't have to record them anymore. And they're almost like in the black hole of finance. Where did the money go? How is it being paid? We have no idea, other than it goes back into unfunded liabilities in the long run for the state, which continues to grow the debt in the state at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that inherently, again, a disregard, a disrespect for law, which we're seeing quite evidently in Hartford, is really furthering the erosion of the state at the same time. I know if I had a major business in the state of Connecticut, I'd be contacting other states and say, what can you offer me and my employees to get out of here? And other states, especially conservative states, especially Republican states, have no problem moving these companies out. Another example, O.F. Mossberg's in North Haven, the gun manufacturer. Malloy was very quick to say, glad they're out of the state. Well, give some historical perspective on that. My father retired out of O.F. Mossberg's back in 1984. That was one of the last jobs he held. He was a tool and die maker, which is a dying trade in the state.
Yeah, very much so.
He worked there for many years. He was very proud of the tools he made to construct guns, which were used for a variety of different purposes, especially for hunters and for sportsmen. And again, that whole facility is gone now. It's going to be leaving North Haven, Connecticut. North Haven's going to lose tax revenue. What are they going to replace it with? No idea. And how many empty factories are there in the state of Connecticut that need to be replaced? And how many jobs need to be replaced? What's the net population loss in the state of Connecticut? These all should be headline news on a daily basis, and asking Democrats who are running for re-election, especially for state senate and the state house, well, what's your plan? Explain what your plan is. You've helped create this issue. What's your plan to resolve it? And I agree with that. You know, where can sanity be found in Hartford? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
My poor little pea brain. I say to myself, the only way you could fix this is you'd have to come out and say, okay, let's use the biblical. Repent, which repent means I'm going to turn from my wicked ways and I'm going to do something entirely different. That's the true meaning of repent, as well as, again, my pea brain would understand it. And in order to do that, you'd have to say, all right, we're halving this tax rate and we're slashing expenses and we're going to give incentives and we're going to get this thing right. That, to me, is the only thing that fixes it.
And again, to me, the Republicans who are running or trying to get elected need to communicate a clear message to the taxpayers of the state of Connecticut. We understand what you're going through. We want to change what is going on in Hartford. But the only way we can change it is if more of us get elected into office and there is a check and balance system that is occurring in the state that you can compromise. You can have a majority of Republicans in the state Senate and a majority of Democrats in the state House. And they would be forced to negotiate and to come up with different plans and different ideas. But when the Republicans are completely shut out of the budget process year in and year out, even though they're representing probably 40 to 45% of the state population, there's something radically wrong with that equation. There's something radically wrong to tell me as a taxpayer, even though I may have a Republican state senator and I have a Democratic state representative, there's absolutely no compromise. There's no discussion between the two parties to try to resolve anything. Okay, so we're going to do the same tried and true. We're going to continue to raise tax. We're going to come up with new tax. We never have enough tax money to resolve what we need to spend money on. And in the same way, you have a highway system that is basically crumbling.
Terrible.
You have an infrastructure that's basically falling apart anywhere you look at it. You have the long work project for I-91, I-95 that continues to go on for years. You think you were building the Great Pyramids of Egypt.
No.
That you can't resolve it. And then you get the excuses of the weather. And then you get the excuses of how complex it is. And then you get the excuse of whatever. And what's the point of it? I mean, it makes no sense to me. Again, it's taxpayers' money being used, federal transportation money being used, and there's no resolution solution to it. There's no conclusion to any of these different issues. And in true political fashion, if we can just pass that buck down another 2 years, if we can knock off a few more things off budget for the next 2 years, everything's going to be all right. If I can just get reelected again for another 2 years, so I got 2 more years on my state pension, that's all I'm really concerned with. And again, that's the biggest problem that I see. A total lack of respect for taxpayers in the state of Connecticut. And like you say, there's absolutely no new ideas. There's nothing being offered, and in my opinion right now, on either side, to try to resolve the issues that we have in the state of Connecticut.
Well, and I, like every once in a while in the summer, like, around where I live, it's let's replace a bridge, and you'll open up your local, like Pomfret Times or something, and the first selectman will say, well, we're replacing a bridge on Route 169, which they're doing now. And I'm thinking, did you ask questions? Did you ask how long this is going to take? Is it necessary? Can the funding be used somewhere else? You never see these questions being asked, and frankly, it just really gets my gourd.
Because so long as the state rep or the state senator delivers the bonding for that particular project, that's all the selectmen or the mayor or the council is worried about in a lot of those communities.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense to me, because you're correct in what you're saying. Can that money be placed someplace else where there is greater need? And if you look at our state and you look at how much we spend on education, and the amount of money being spent in education is focused mostly on salaries and benefits. There's very little money being spent on the infrastructure of the schools, unless the school becomes so dilapidated that a new school has to be.
Mm-hmm.
And or at the same time, the amount of technology for the students becomes an issue, because the technology continues to have to be updated. Why don't we focus on an education, getting a little more bang for our buck, than continue to be worried about the event of making sure that there's higher salaries, higher benefits, higher pensions being offered, so that we do what? Allow the bulk of the money just to go for salary and benefits, and then how does a child get educated? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I pointed out to one person in education, and she became very upset with me when I said it. I said, the way you talk about, you think we're revisiting Upton Sinclair's The Jungle of the turn of the century when you're looking at teaching conditions in the state of Connecticut. It makes no sense to me. I mean, I think it's a very, very good situation. It's well above average salaries and benefits. And where does it all end? And how are we educating our students? Because you know what? When I get them in my classes, in a lot of cases, I don't really see a lot of education that took place over the past 12 years for them to have the skills, the knowledge, and the ability so that they can employ themselves in the future.
And you have to deal with it.
A community college or a regular university program of education, so that they can be career-oriented. Well, I don't see that to a great degree.
I understand.
So, I'm a little off subject there, but again, here's the point. Where does the money go? Again, we obviously always need more money for education. And to me, the chronic argument is we can't cut anything. If we cut anything, there's going to be wholesale problems in the school system, so on and so forth. Well, I really don't see that anymore, because I just don't see where
the benefit
money
is
being spent that's truly allowing for a better education for the kids that are going to public schools and who are trying to graduate and trying to learn and trying to get the skills so they can get a good job when they get out.
Bob, I can't believe it. We're out of time. We haven't even hit the national scene yet, so we'll have you back soon enough. And you take care. I know you tell our friends and fans where they can reach you.
You can check out my blog, Swick, and just do a Google search and it'll come up, or I'm on Capital Report 2016 under Bob Swick, and that'll bring you right to my blog.
Well, Bob, take care. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Have a good night.
You too. That was Professor Bob Swick, and we're going to be coming back with some amazing retromercials, and then some of my favorite classic movie clips. You can't wait to to see this. Right back.